I'm JT and I'm an alcoholic. That's how this section starts out. And JT is Jason Thibodeau, who's the father in this story. And his son is named Rafe. He'll be referred to. He doesn't appear in this scene. He's a son, Rafe is a son he lost custody of early on in a divorce. And Jason is a major league pitcher with the Colorado Rockies. How'd the Giants do today, by the way? They're losing. I'm sorry about that. Jason pitched for the Giants for a while. They were in a rebuilding period and they let him go. He was too good for them. They couldn't afford him. And he's just signed a $42 million contract. His son ended up in the juvenile detention center here in San Francisco. And the mother no longer feels capable of caring for him, and he comes out to live with the father, who's a major league pitcher. And he attempts to be a single father, caring for his son and pitching every 4 days for a major league team. And this is the point in the story when he realizes that he can no longer do that. Hi, I'm JT and I'm an alcoholic. His head felt heavy, his legs stuck in cement. The second day of a Midwest road trip, and he knew he would drink eventually, if only to sleep. In sleep, he couldn't think about what a lousy father he was. Hi, JT. I don't know where to start. I hadn't had a drink for 7 years, and then a couple of weeks ago. He took a deep breath and looked at his hands. There were 16 meetings in Chicago that evening, and he'd ended up at one with a dozen people just a few years older than Rafe. He had listened for nearly an hour, absorbing their pain. The boy whose father left when he was 5. The girl whose father left when she was 2 and never spoke to anyone in the family again. The boy whose father worked 12 hours a day and drank the rest of the time. The girl who compared the time her father spent with his dog and with her each week and came out on the short end 35 hours to 2. Mean fathers, neglectful fathers, drunken fathers, fathers without jobs, fathers without consciences, fathers without hearts. He had read all the studies, spoken about them on talk shows and with reporters. Now he was hearing it from their children, the runaway and drug abusers, the dropouts and drunks, the girls who got pregnant or attempted suicide, who ate incessantly or never ate at all. All of them, every last one of them, were tied as tragically to a faulty parent, usually their father, as a suicide to a concrete block. Somehow he had to let these kids know that he wasn't one of those fathers. I tried to call my son. He's 15. He's back in Denver. That's where we live. And when he wasn't home, I went ballistic. He's having trouble in school. He's been in trouble with the law, drug charges, breaking and entering. I've got a job that takes me out of town for weeks at a time. They had beaten the Cubs that afternoon. The team was on a roll. He worried how many of these kids in the meeting knew who he was. Anyway, I'm rambling. I don't know what's wrong. He came to live with me. His mother and I are divorced. It was a painful divorce. I didn't think we did it very well, but that's over now. He's living with me and I'm trying to stay involved, but it's really difficult with my job. I feel like I'm not doing right by him or with my job. When I call him from the road, I want there to be a connection, but I can't get any feel for him at all. Sometimes after I hang up, I feel like throwing the phone as far as I can, and that's when I want to drink. I have been drinking. He paused and took another deep breath. Then he began to cry. He didn't want to, but the others had already cried, so it didn't seem so bad. Besides his own pain, he could feel Rafe's too, leaving his mother, his friends, his dreams. I don't know who he's with. I don't know what he's doing. I wonder why he came to live with me, because he doesn't seem happy at all. A few of the young people watched him intently. This was the hard part. This was the part even he didn't want to hear. What really bothers me the most is, I don't think I love him anymore. It's just too hard. The secretary glanced at Jason and then at her watch. She waited a few moments, then smiled. Thank you, she said. Would everyone who wants to please join me in the closing prayer? Afterwards, Jason folded his chair and leaned it against the wall with the others. It was only 9 p.m. and he was wondering what he would do in Chicago for the rest of his insomnia extended night, when a long-haired, heavy-set kid who had spoken hatefully about his father came towards him, carrying a couple of chairs. He had condemned his dad as a working man who worked obsessively at a construction business, then left him and his sister and his mother and moved to Michigan, where he made a fortune and began another family. Thank you for your share, he said, setting the chair down. Jason smiled uneasily. It meant a lot to hear there's fathers out there trying, the young man said. A strange chill came over Jason. He had been praised for his fastball, his slider, his command with runners on base, but no one had praised him for being a father in a long time. I'm trying, though I don't know what good it's doing, he said. Hey, that's all you can do, the kid said. The young man moved closer, as close as Wells got when he came to the mound to talk. Jason wasn't sure what to do. He hadn't been to an AA meeting in 5 years. He knew what the young man was looking for, but it was awkward. He knew what he needed himself, but he felt awkward too. Finally, he threw his arms around the young man's shoulders and hugged him. Thank you, Jason said. The young man squeezed back, then stepped away. Your son doesn't care if you love him, he said. That's just the icing on the cake. Jason's final road trip before Rafe finished summer school took him to Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and St. Louis. They dropped the second game of the Milwaukee series 3-1 after pounding out a 10-2 win the night before. As soon as the game was over, he called Rafe. As usual, he got his voicemail. As usual, he hung up. Hey, Alex Heredia called out when he got off the phone. Vístate, los chicos nos están esperando. The Latino caucus, as the Spanish-speaking players called themselves, were going to Lupita's, a salsa place on the south side of Milwaukee. But he declined. He wanted to walk. He loved this time of year when every town in America felt like Port Sulphur. 2 blocks from the hotel, he strode into a boisterous neighborhood that appeared to be some kind of Eastern European enclave. Polish, Bulgarian, Czech, he couldn't tell. There were smells of cabbage, cinnamon, and beer. Old country music mixed with, old country music, not old country music. Old country music mixed with rock and roll lingering on the warm, humid air. People moved on and off their front stoops as if they were rafts, drifting to neighbors' homes, the corner store, into the house for a beer. Families, brothers and sisters and grandmothers gathered in noisy pods. But where were the fathers? He felt ashamed of himself. He pictured his son walking the streets of Denver, clothes hanging like laundry from his body, a sullen slouch inviting the spotlight from passing Denver PD. What good was he doing anybody? This is the way his father did it, and his father before that, and all the fathers missing from this neighborhood. He was following in their footsteps, footsteps that didn't lead anywhere. He stopped in front of a pet store and punched Rafe's number on his cell phone. He stared into the eyes of a tiny Labrador puppy watching him through the window. Leave a message, Rafe's voice said. He hung up. The puppy ran back and forth across the window front, yapping with delight as Jason tapped on the window. Maybe he should get a dog, give Rafe a companion, teach him to be responsible about something. Or maybe he thought it was time to send him back to his mother. He led the puppy back and forth across the window with his finger, watching his excited, trusting eyes. What was the dog thinking? What was he thinking? Rafe was just 15. He didn't know what he wanted. His mother had given up on him, and now his father wasn't there either. How could he believe in himself if his parents didn't believe in him? His hand drifted away from the window, and the puppy was watching, waiting, a look of eager anticipation on his face. Jason thought of himself as a kid and the thousands, the tens of thousands of hours he'd spent playing baseball since then. Out of everything he'd ever tried, school, marriage, drinking, drugs, baseball was the only way he had found to escape who he was destined to be, the son of a hard-luck oil worker, and become something altogether different. And now he was going to have to give it all up, the sound, the feel, the glory of baseball. He had no other choice. He put his hand back to the glass, and the puppy leaped at it. Good night, little guy, he said sweetly. Somebody will give you a home real soon.